How's it going, man? How are you?
How you? I'm working, man. I work here.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Do you have your ID with you?
What I need ID for?
Because I want to make sure that you are you, and this is a weird way to park.
I've been working here for 4 years, sir.
Oh, really?
So you must be new. This is a new route or something?
No.
You know why I park right here like this? Because my car done got bipped outside before. I got vacuums. I park right here so I can hear and know what's going on. Be alert. Either got alarm go off or something.
This is a weird way to park.
But this is our property. This is our property. We work here.
Places like this get broken into all the time. What's your last name, sir?
Sir, what am I doing wrong? Have I committed a crime?
No, but
am I under suspicion for something?
This is rather suspicious.
Well, can I get out of the car and unlock the door for you and shut the alarm down?
Heck yeah.
That's good?
Yeah. Can I still get your name?
You know I don't have to show you my name. You know my rights. Why would I forfeit my rights for nothing? I'm over here working. You're making me late for my next job.
Maybe you want anything else?
I need you to just leave. Y'all both dismissed.
Welcome back, everybody. As many of you guys know, I'm a law enforcement trainer instructor. I train and instruct military and law enforcement all over the country on various law enforcement disciplines to include constitutional law, case law, patrol tactics, use of force, investigations, etc. And here in this video, we see that it appears that law enforcement is responding to an alarm call. Now, a lot of times how these calls are going to work is the key holder is going to have some kind of subscription or some kind of alarm, commercial alarm service, or residential service that is a third-party entity that will notify law enforcement if an alarm is tripped or if thresholds are met. Now, some of these can be something as simple as a motion detection alarm. They could be a break-in alarm where a window is broken, key alarm, etc. So there's various different types of alarms that can be triggered and law enforcement will be contacted. So in this case, it appears the officers are responding to an alarm call, and when they get there, they observe that there's a car that's parked, awkwardly, suspiciously, however you want to put it, parked probably not in a parking spot next to whatever address they were given for the call, and they make contact. Now, with that being said, I have no problem with how the officer conducted business here. The only advice that I would give on this is the fact that he said, well, I don't believe that I'm not saying you committed a crime, or you haven't committed a crime, or I don't believe you committed a crime. I think you kind of cut your legs off from underneath you because what you're telling the person is that I have no reasonable articulable suspicion. And the reason why that matters, and maybe he didn't, and again, everybody's going to be different. Reasonable articulable suspicion is based upon officer to officer of what you have. So when we look at our first case law here that you guys have heard me speak about often, right? The Supreme Court has affirmed that law enforcement needs reasonable articulable suspicion of a crime in order to detain and compel somebody to identify themselves. That's Brown v. Texas. And so here we have a person, we have an officer who maybe at this time he did not think that he had reasonable articulable suspicion. I can tell you that for me personally, if I'm responding to an active alarm call where the alarm is actively going off, I am talking to this dispatcher, and they are telling me, hey, we have an alarm call, and I'm able, especially if I'm able to directly talk to the alarm company, and they're telling me, yeah, we have a motion alert, this is what we have, this alarm is triggering, and I get there and I see somebody that's backed into the residence. I personally believe that I have reached all the elements that I would need for reasonable articulable suspicion. Again, reasonable articulable suspicion is not probable, guys. I just need to be able to have reasonable articulable suspicion that crime is afoot, and based upon those markers and prerequisites, I believe I'm already there, and I would be very comfortable sitting in front of a lawyer that makes $900 an hour, questioning me on whether or not I had reasonable articulable suspicion. There are many different case law precedents out there that I would immediately reference that would say, based upon the Supreme Court case precedents that's been set by these various circuits, yeah, we're there, counselor. But that's just me, right? So I believe that argument would be very easy to be made. Now, with that being said, does that mean just because I have reasonable articulable suspicion that I need to get heavy-handed, throw people in cuffs, take the ID out of their wallet, whatever? Well, no. That's where we kind of have to understand and have a little bit of wisdom and discretion here. Now, the first thing that I want to kind of bring up is DC versus Wisby 2018. This is a slide that I teach. This is a case law that I teach. And the United States Supreme Court has affirmed that the existence of an innocent explanation for a particular circumstance is not enough to deny probable cause for an arrest. So essentially, if I come to a scene and I have probable cause or I have reasonable suspicion, the fact that you're able to articulate a conceivable innocent answer for why you're there, the fact that you're able to articulate, oh, that's not for what you think it is, this is this, doesn't take away my probable cause, right? So if you arrest somebody, or you're there, right, and you have developed probable cause for narcotics or for whatever crime that you have, just because somebody says, "Oh, that's not methamphetamine, that's pretzel salt," just because pretzel salt very well could have similar characteristics to methamphetamine, doesn't mean that automatically the officer's reasonable articulable suspicion or probable cause for that arrest goes away, right? So if you guys go to my website, you'll see that I do courses and I bring imitation drugs that look like methamphetamine, that look like other types of drugs. And if you go on my website, you can see it. And if you look at this imitation methamphetamine that I created, again, not drugs at all, 100% innocent. But if I had that in my pocket and I got stopped by a cop and they were able to, let's say, use the Minnesota versus Dickerson plain touch doctrine, etc., and they were to locate that, just because I can say unequivocally, no, that is not methamphetamine. I'm a police trainer and instructor. That is for my courses that I teach. 100% could be true, 100% honest. They can test it. They can do whatever they can, whatever they want to do, and it will not come back to any kind of drug. But does that take away the probable cause to make that arrest? No, it doesn't. And so there's a reason why I use and I create the imitation drugs the way I do, because they do look real. That's the whole purpose of it. The whole purpose of it is to get good logical training that people and police officers can swear to in an affidavit based upon their training experience. So in order to allow them the ability to come up and formulate, these decision making, especially when it comes to the fact that they'll be using this in real life on affidavits and warrants, yes, it has to look it has to look real. It has to look and feel like the real thing. So that's just an example, right? If I were to get stopped, and again, go to my website, you can kind of you can see some of the paraphernalia and stuff that we use. Absolutely, again, if I'm out in the street and somehow I get stopped and frisked, and by plain touch doctrine, he's able to get in my pocket and locate that bag of imitation methamphetamine that I use for training. Yeah, just because I can innocently explain it away doesn't take away that officer's probable cause. And that's what DC versus Wisby is telling us. So caveat that back to what we have here. This gentleman in the video has a lot of good innocent explanations, right? I work here. I've worked here for this amount of years. If you look in the back, you're going to see that I have cleaning equipment. You're going to see that I have vacuums. Does that necessarily mean the officer's reasonable articulable suspicion goes away because he's able to articulate, hey, I have a vacuum in the back of my car? No, it doesn't. Now, with that being said, as we progress with this investigation, is a person able to go unlock the door, get in, and shut the alarm off? Yes. Would that dispel any kind of suspicion that I had, reasonable articulable suspicion or probable cause that I had at that time? Yes. And that's where I can articulate that this person does in fact belong here, is a fact here, and this was probably an accident on his behalf, right? And so that's where that discretion comes in. But with that being said, there are other different ways that the officer can go about this investigation, right? People, by and large, may not always want to cooperate with you, especially when they know they're right. If I know for a fact I'm right, and I know this is my house or this is my place of work, and you're a cop, and I feel like you're just messing with me, do I have to help you in your investigation? I don't. Even though I own this property, right? I own this business. Does that mean that everybody's just going to whip out their identification and say, no, I own it, here you go? No, that does not mean that at all. And so as law enforcement officers, we have to understand that when people feel like they're right, or let's say they are in the right, well, in this case, you have two people being right at the same time. You have somebody that does have a right to be there, right? And you have a law enforcement officer that does have reasonable articulable suspicion and does have a right to stop and detain. Both can be true at the same time. And that's what people have to realize in law, right? People have to realize that there's this one sum perspective, and that's the only thing that matters. And so that's why it's important that we talk about this, because if I arrive on scene and I'm responding to an active burglary alarm, active alarm, and I'm talking to their dispatcher and they're telling me the business hours close at here, they're reading off their template. The key holder is this person. Key holder is Katie Brown. Katie Brown says her hours are between here and here, and that the business is locked and closed, this, that, and the other, and there's no reason for anybody to be here, right? Because there's templates that, they give information. my first thing is, if I interact with this person and this person's not wanting to help me with my investigation, but they're being cool, they're being relaxed, they're telling me that they're not going to assist me, but they're not being, the way I look at it when I first come on scene is very clear. This guy just doesn't want to be messed with, right? So if he's being cool, there's no reason why I have to get heavy-handed. Okay, go ahead. I'll go ahead and wake up the key holder. I want you to contact the key holder, right? There's nothing that says that I can't still figure this out, but does that mean you have to go heavy-handed with, hey, ripping you out of the car and putting you in handcuffs? No. Again, let's use our investigative prowess. Let's go ahead and wake the key holder up. Let's go ahead and query the license plate. As you can see here, absolutely you can query license plates. Kansas v. Glover is Supreme Court case precedents. It goes all the way down to People versus Bushley, and I'm sure there's many more. So the police officer, that guy doesn't want to cooperate, cool. Let's go ahead and let's query license plates. Let's use some of our other investigative prowess and prerogatives to kind of figure out what it is that we're looking for. But again, this goes back to the initial understanding, and this is what we have to realize in law. The officer if I show up on scene, I have reasonable articulable suspicion, even if that person is in fact supposed to be there, right? So both people can be right. The person that's there as a custodian, third party, cleaning the residence is right. He has every right to be there, and the police officer also has a right that he has reasonable articulable suspicion to stop and detain. So in this case, right, you can have both people being right at the same time. And so we have to realize, and in law enforcement, we obviously realize there's very few situations where we make everybody happy. And I think alarm calls are definitely one of those calls, because let's say I get there and I say, okay, cool. Well, I'm asking for ID. You don't want to give it to me. Okay, that's fine. But you are detained, right? If you could just sit here, chill out, we'll figure this out. I can be as nice, cool, calm, as collected as I want. But if that person is supposed to be there, guess what? I haven't violated their rights because I have met the elements of reasonable articulable suspicion. I have met the Supreme Court case law prerequisites. But I'm going to be waking up a key holder at 2 o'clock in the morning. They're not going to be happy that they're being inconvenienced, right? And then this person that's there contracted for a job, he's not going to like the inconvenience. So I'm really leaving that situation making everybody unhappy, right? This guy's unhappy with me. Key holder's unhappy with the situation. Again, it's a lose-lose. So this is just one of these great videos that can kind of expand on this, right? So you have two people that are essentially right at the same time. The officer is allowed to stop and detain with reasonable articulable suspicion. The Supreme Court has said that just because you have a innocent explanation for a particular set of circumstances doesn't take away the officer's reasonable articulable suspicion or probable cause. And that's just kind of where we're at. So this is just something to think about, and I want you guys to be cognizant of this. I want you guys to be aware of this, because there can be a situation where both are right in their own realm of case law. So again, keep that in mind. Again, a lot of people aren't going to want to hear this, but again, my job is just to provide you guys with the truth, right? My job is to provide you with the reality of the situation and allow you to come to your own conclusions. I hope this video was helpful for you guys. If you guys like the video, please like, share, subscribe. And as always, guys, long live the Republic.